Hey everybody, this is Christian Smith here. I wear a lot of different hats in life, and today I'm actually posting this video wearing the hat of a Christian minister, of a preacher, of a member of the clergy. And I want to address an issue that has been weighing on me heavily for a while now. I wrote a letter to the church, an open letter that I was going to just post so people can read it. But then I thought about it and I said, people may not read all of this. So I decided to post it in video format for those of you who may not have the time to read it. Hopefully, you'll listen to what I have to say. I hope that you would listen all the way through and that you would take into consideration some of the things that I say because they're very important, especially for the church moving forward and how we deal with certain issues and how we work around the things that seem to divide and separate us. So this is my open letter to the church. I wrote the letter with much angst and trepidation because it reflects views and interpretations that are not very popular in some of my circles. I recognize that I have speaking engagements currently on my itinerary that may get canceled as a result of this video. Some of my relationships will suffer and some may even end as a result of this video. I am compelled, however, to speak on behalf of those who I feel are unjustly criticized and ostracized in my community. My purpose for sharing this video was not to convince anyone else to believe what I believe. I am not trying to start some kind of reformation in the Christian church. My hope is that Christians, especially clergy, would just listen. That is my request. We don't have to agree. No two people agree about everything, but we should be able to walk together in Christian love even when we share differences of opinion. Now, as a member of the clergy, I can confidently say that most of us feel very comfortable in situations where we are called upon to speak. It's what we do, and many of us do it well. What many of us do not do proficiently is listen. We generally come to our conclusions and we don't consider any other perspectives as if our understanding of every situation is the gospel. And that partially shapes the behaviors and thoughts and patterns of the people who follow us. Now, I have been watching the LGBT saga unfold for much of my life. I grew up in an environment where homosexuality was highly criticized and condemned as one of the most disgusting and perverted sins. I heard and read a number of biblical passages that refer to homosexuality as a sin or an abomination. So for most of my life, I accepted this train of thought at face value. Why did I need to question it? It was right there in black and white. And hey, homosexuality is unnatural, so it just made perfect sense. Now, I'm not going to take this time to discuss or debate the biblical stance on homosexuality because there isn't adequate time to do that in this video. That's also not my assignment or my mission at this point. I just would like to consider the human aspect of the issue at the moment. Because before we became Christians and got acquainted with the Bible, we were human. Our sexual orientation was predetermined before we ever picked up or read the Bible. Now, I have heard many times during the course of my life that being gay is a choice. I have even said it before from the pulpit myself. But as my thought has evolved, I have had to revisit the concept of same-gender attraction being a choice. So I asked myself the question, Christian, did you choose to be straight? I have even asked a variation of this question to some of my friends who I have discussed this issue with. So now I ask you, my straight or heterosexual viewer, how old were you when you chose your heterosexuality? Now think about that question before you answer. How old were you when you chose your heterosexuality? I'll give you some time. Are you done thinking? I'm willing to bet everything I own that the vast majority of you who are watching this video did not actually choose your sexuality. It was not a conscious decision. You didn't go out to the playground at elementary school one day and weigh the options between attraction to boys or attraction to girls. I know I didn't. I just knew I liked girls. I never had to choose. I have never seen a man in my life to whom I was sexually attracted. Nothing about my sexuality allows me to be attracted to another man. It is unnatural for me. So I have come to the conclusion that the vast majority of us heterosexuals realize our sexuality rather than choose it. With that in mind, if we heterosexuals realize our sexuality, why have we determined all gay people choose theirs? It just doesn't add up for me. And it does not add up according to modern science either. I have had too many conversations with gay people who have said they would not have chosen to be gay if they had the option. Think about it. Why would someone choose to be ostracized? Why would someone choose to be shunned? Why would someone choose to be abandoned? Why would someone choose to be bullied? Why would someone choose to be verbally, physically, and psychologically abused? Why would someone choose to be oppressed? It is easy to minimize the enduring permanence of sexual orientation when our heterosexuality is considered the norm. It is easy to condemn gay people to hell when we were comfortably born into our heterosexuality. It is not so easy to enter into the experience of the gay person and see the world from their perspective for even a moment. As difficult a task it may be, let's give it a try. I want you to imagine that you are a child born into a world where your heterosexuality is abnormal. I know this is hard, but give it a shot. In this hypothetical situation, 95% of the population happens to have same gender attraction, but you realize that you like the opposite sex. All legal marriages are between same-sex partners. So because you like the opposite sex, you are now the oddball out. You try to talk to your parents about it, but they just dismiss it as a phase. Or they tell you that you'll grow out of it. Or maybe they get mad and beat you as if you did something wrong. Your church tells you that you have to pray it away. So you pray. You beg God to make you normal like everyone else, but God never answers your prayer. So you finally embrace the fact that you are different. You realize that as a heterosexual individual, there is no chance of you ever being sexually attracted to the same sex. Therefore, you choose to embrace your sexuality because you can't live your whole life trying to be someone that you are not. As a result, your family ostracizes you because you are sexually attracted to the opposite sex. Your church condemns you. Your entire faith community tells you that your heterosexuality is a sickness, and if that you don't choose to be delivered and be gay, then hell will be your eternal resting place. Then some people accept certain parts of your sexuality. So they allow you to be straight as long as you don't want to get married. How would you feel? How would you respond? This is the position in which many of our gay brothers and sisters find themselves. Now, I can't speak for you, so I'll just speak for myself. If I were in that position and my relationship with God depended on my sexuality according to the church, I would most likely do one of two things. I would either completely abandon religion altogether, which many gay people have done, or I would reimagine who God is to me, which many gay people have done. I am not trying to convince you to change your biblical stance on homosexuality. That's another conversation for another day. I just want you to listen. I'm pleading with you to consider the perspective of the other. Homosexuality is unnatural for many of us heterosexuals, but the inverse is true as well. Heterosexuality is unnatural for many homosexuals. Even if we forever consider homosexuality to be a sin, we should at least acknowledge a person doesn't get to choose or change their sexuality. The choice we all have is whether or not we practice our sexuality. We don't choose our sexuality, we choose whether or not we will practice our sexuality. So the most the church could ask of a gay Christian is to take a vow of celibacy. Now, I personally cannot make such a request as a straight male who has the privilege of morally expressing my sexuality with my wife. I am not comfortable saying God intends for every gay person to remain celibate for the duration of his or her life. Now, when I revealed to my family my intentions to share my views on this topic, my mother, whom I love dearly, asked me to consider two things: my intentions and my desired outcome. I have already stated my desired outcome. I desire that people listen to the stories of the other. I want people to consider the perspectives of the other. I want church people to stop treating this issue as if it's black and white. There are more than 140 shades of gray when it comes to this topic. My motives for writing, or my intentions behind me writing, actually stem from my experience as a black male. Now, I stand at 6'2". I weigh about 255 pounds, and I have a fairly athletic build. As a black man with these measurables, I am arguably the most feared species in this country. I have heard many a car door lock as I walk across the street. I have seen many white women clutch their purse tight and move to the other side of the sidewalk as I approach. I have been called a nigger by white men driving a big truck adorned with the Confederate flag while I went for a jog in my own neighborhood. I have been placed in the back of a police car for no apparent reason. I can't count how many times employees followed me around retail establishments simply because the color of my skin made me suspect. I'm not talking about what I saw in a movie. I'm not talking about a video somebody posted on Facebook. I'm talking about what I have lived myself. I have often called on my white brothers and sisters to acknowledge the presence of racism in America, even when they are not the overt perpetrators. Many white people I have had personal conversations with never felt compelled to speak on racism because they are not racist and they have never been the victims of racism. So I challenge them to not just ignore the reality of racism simply because they are not directly affected by it. Dietrich Bonhoeffer said, "Silence in the face of evil is itself evil. God will not hold us guiltless. Not to speak is to speak. Not to act is to act." I tell my white brothers and sisters that their silence on the issue of racism speaks volumes, and they can refuse to speak or act on the issue primarily because they are not affected by it. It is much harder to ignore an issue when it is a prevalent part of your life. That is my definition of white privilege. It means a white person can act as if racism doesn't exist because it's not a part of their reality. If they are not racist and they are not the victim of racism, then why bother? So as I considered how I challenge white people to give up their white privilege and address racism for the good of those who are victims, I was confronted with my own privilege. Now, as I said, I'm a 6'2", 255-pound black man, so that does not grant me a great deal of privilege in these United States. However, if I sit back and watch my gay brothers and sisters get verbally and physically attacked, condemned, and vilified, I am guilty of basking in my very own hetero privilege. As a heterosexual, I can refuse to address the struggles of gay people because I don't share their struggle in the same way a white person can ignore my struggles with racism. The gay person did not choose to be born gay any more than I chose to be born black. This is our lot in life. We must defend each other in the face of oppression. Now, I know that many of my black viewers are upset now because I have compared the oppression of gay people to the oppression of black people. I do not make this comparison to suggest that the two groups have experienced identical oppression. Gay people in America have never been told they can't vote. Gay people in America have never been legally forbidden from learning how to read. Gay people in America have never had fire hoses turned on them by law enforcement. Gay people in America have never been sold as property at a slave auction. And gay people in America are not being targeted by the mass incarceration system. I think that's clear. However, the fact that the oppression of gay people is not as diabolical as the oppression of black people does not negate the fact that they are indeed oppressed. The similarity between the struggles of black people and gay people is that we are both oppressed for characteristics over which we have no control. The troubling aspect of gay oppression is that many times it comes from the people closest to them. Black people are generally oppressed by those outside of our community. Gay people are oppressed by their own families. They are oppressed by their own churches. They are driven to suicide not only because a stranger ridicules them, it's their mother and their father, their sister and their brother, their uncles and aunties, their so-called friends and loved ones. That's frightening. Once again, my purpose here is not to argue the biblical morality and ethics of homosexuality, although that is a conversation that deserves our attention. I simply want the church to take a step back and consider this dilemma from another perspective. What if you can't pray the gay away? What if God made gay people the way they are on purpose? What if their relationship with God hinges on whether or not they are treated in love by the people of God? What if the shoe was on the other foot and your sexuality made you the oddball out? What if your condemnation drives some gay person to depression or even suicide? And what if that gay person was your own child? What if we just be quiet and listen? I wonder what would happen then. Peace.